Hello and welcome to Mindshifters Radio. I'm Tim Hayes. I'm your host for the first hour. And today is Wednesday, August 13th, 2025. As always, we're grateful to everyone who's joining us here today, whether you're listening live or through the archives as we spend another couple of hours teaching and supporting people in using some of the most powerful, effective, efficient, and accessible tools I've ever encountered. These tools are available absolutely free through the tireless efforts of Dr. Michael and Jeannie Ryce on the website at whyagain.org. If you go to that website and click on the two words that say Start Here in the upper left-hand corner, sorry, there's a little glitching in our computer. If you say Start Here in the upper left-hand corner, it will take you to a page we can download and read Chapter 24 of Dr. Michael Ryce's book. Book is titled, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? And that chapter of the book contains a narrative description and explanation of the primary tool in this work. That tool is called the Reality Management Worksheet, sometimes called the Reality Management Wake-Up Sheet. And it's a tool I've been using to great effect for over 20 years now to improve the quality of my life and most of my relationships, and to turn any negative emotional experience I have, turn it into part of the infallible guidance system that each and every one of us has been given. You can also download the actual worksheet process itself. It's a simple PDF file. Click the link, download it, print it off, copy it as often as you'd like, and use it over and over again absolutely free. You can also download a whole host of audio files or shows just like this one where people have been stepped through that worksheet process. And if you choose to listen to them even repeatedly, they can serve as a powerful tutorial for you to help you get maximum benefit from these tools in the shortest amount of time possible. You can also go to your app store and type in the three words Heartland Aramaic Forgiveness. If you choose to do that, it'll let you download a completely free and private app that contains the Reality Management Worksheet. It contains an abbreviated version of that worksheet process, and it contains a copy of the Dragon Klingon game, which is a wonderful way to introduce these tools to even younger audiences. We hope people do all of that soon and often, primarily because it tends to improve the quality of people's lives the more they actively apply these tools in their lives. And secondarily, because it tends to prompt comments, questions, answers, and testimonials. If you have any of those to share with us, please email me at tjh@mindshifters-academy.org, or you can email Jeannie at jeanie@whyagain.org. That's whyagain.org. And if we get a question or a comment from you through an email, we'll address it on the internet show, and then as time allows, send you a notification about what day and time that occurred, so you can listen back to the archives for your feedback or input. We hope people do all of that soon and often, primarily because it tends to improve the quality of people's lives the more they actively apply these tools in their lives, and secondarily because it tends to make it easier for us to live into our intention with this work. The intention we have with this work is to be of service, and that's just boatloads easier to do when we know how these things are landing for you. Alternatively, if you're available, you can join us live. Open up a web browser, go to zoom.us, or pick one of the numbers they list for you to call, and then enter the meeting ID. Our meeting ID for this first hour is 853-2357-4173. 853-2357-4173. And then you have access to talk to us live or listen in or share your video and interact fully live or type in the chat room. So we have plenty of time for comments, questions, observations. How can we support you today? It's been a full morning of conversations, and The last thread in conversation was all about perception and how unique each of us is in the perceptions we create, and how that is so often the source of the disagreements or arguments or disruptions we have in our relationships, because we're taught to think we look out through our eyes and we just see the truth of what is. We are not educated to understand how each and every one of us is crafting our own experience of life moment to moment, and that it can be radically different than the person standing right next to us in any situation. So what's the solution for that? The solution for that is to recognize how different our perceptions can be, and instead of telling people that we know what happened and we know what's right and we know what we said, instead of that pattern, what I recommend to people is that you say, well, this is what I thought I said. This is what I intended to convey. This is what I think I heard. This is what I think I saw happen. And just in that much of a softening about my sense of certainty, I open the doorway for communication and effective communication between myself and whoever I'm talking to or writing to. Now we have a number of people that have been on the groups and on the internet show and the support groups over the years who have experienced the pattern of being told over and over again when they were a child that their perception was wrong, that they don't understand, that they're not seeing things accurately, that they're not hearing things accurately. And for some of those people, it's an extra challenge to get them to suggest that they might be wrong, or that they might have misspoken, or that they might have not heard correctly, because it resonates all of that old trauma energy about being the subject of gaslighting. Gaslighting is any kind of a process that intentionally or unintentionally, originally it was intended to be intentional, but can work both ways, a process that leaves a person feeling as though they're being told that their perception is inaccurate, that they don't know what they're talking about, that they don't know what happened, that they don't understand things. And if they've downloaded trauma energy around patterns like that, it's going to be an even greater challenge for them to buy into things like the Reality Management Worksheet or the forgiveness pattern, where there is this continual reminder for me to cancel my need to be right and cancel my need for anyone or anything to change, including myself, and to just put all of that aside and ask to be shown a different way to look at the current situation. And yet, I have seen people have success with this when they realize it only really works when it's coming from inside them, when they make the choice to cancel their need to be right, when they make the choice to ask to be shown. So if they can understand that it's an inside job and there's no outside authority right now telling them that they are wrong or that they need to change their point of view or their perception, but they are using their own feedback of the tightness, the tension, the upset to trigger their own authority to choose a different course of action. And in this case, the different course of action is instead of I'm right, I know what's right, I know what happened, I can trust my perceptions implicitly, etc. Instead of that, they can choose to let in all the evidence that we have about how our perception is a very active process and that each and every one of us creates our perception in the moment based on what we've been through in the past, far more than what's actually happening in the moment.
Hi,
So
Tim.
go ahead.
Thank you for that. The perfect timing. I was just preparing for tonight, and in the research looking at that, they were saying, they being the researchers and doing my review, that we put the data in chunks. It's already been processed, but most of it's been processed. 99.99% has been processed before it even comes to the conscious mind. So what are your thoughts on that? And then so it's interesting because when you're speaking, I can see in my own story, and oh my gosh, you just nailed my childhood about that, right? Being told constantly. And then of course there was a lot of lying. I was abused very young and had to get taken to the hospital, and they lied. They lied, and I was right there. They're lying of what happened, and I know what happened. Then I knew what happened, but they were lying. And then that just one had to push that underground, accept the lie. And then I went forward into life, accepted the lie. And of course, now it's, the last few years coming to light of what really the actuality that happened. So, and then of course, the mind makes up a construct, then constructing it in the moment based on all the garbage that happened in the past.
Right. And as far as we can tell, at our current state of understanding, that's what we're all doing all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's coming really clear, and that
So,
everybody
so
has it.
is there a question for me in that?
Yeah, I just the curiosity if 99% of the information, so in the research, and just further to Dr. Rice's, they're saying that the conscious mind processes 10 bits of data per second. And but the brain is at taking in millions of bits per second. And then but before the data comes to the conscious mind, so that's a big differential between 10 bits to millions of bits. And then and they're saying, the experts were saying, the behavioral scientists and things are saying that it's already been chunked, and most of it's been filed before it even gets to the conscious mind. And I just wanted your thoughts on that.
Well, I don't have any specific thoughts on it other
Yeah.
than to say it's quite likely that
Okay.
all of the research that I've been exposed to and the anecdotal stories from people and listening to Dr. Rice quote the Harvard research, et cetera, it all points to people are probably being more generous when they say, we can be aware of 9 bits of data in the period of time that 10,000 brain cells are firing, et cetera. It's probably generous to think that you can actually track 9 bits of data every 25th of a second. And so here's a revision, right? You said 10 bits of data every second. Well, that's 25 times less
Yeah.
than the study that Dr. Michael Ryce is quoting from. So it's quite likely that there's we're going to find out that it's more like there's a trillion times more going on every moment
Yeah.
than what our conscious logical mind can be aware of or work
So,
with.
yeah, and then I just happened when I went to bed last night playing the Way in Mastery. I just went because you talked about it last night, and interesting. It was all about that. We really don't know. We don't have a clue. Given that what we just said, I realize I really don't know anything. I don't,
Yeah.
and trying to figure it out with thought, and what I've been shown, it's not accurate. And then to rest in the that this is all just coming clear that
Right. And the good news is, because some people tend to take that information and then go into panic mode or say, well, then there's nothing I can know or nothing I can do. And I like to switch that up and say, well, wait a minute. The good news in this doom and gloom scenario is that you have a built-in warning system. And it really works. It works really well. It's just been mistrained, right? You've been programmed to think that the alarm you're hearing means someone outside of you is in error and they need to change so you don't have to hear the alarm. When in essence, the best use of that alarm or any negative emotional state or internal tension or upset, physical, mental, or emotional, the best use of it is that it's an alarm to wake me up to the fact that something's off the mark in here in terms of my processing, my conclusions, my perception, because I'm creating it, right? The picture I'm creating. And if I engage that warning system and learn to read it differently, it can be a boon to my success in my relationships and my efforts in my job, because I'm going to avoid blaming others for the messes that I make. I'm going to take responsibility for the messes I make in here and clear them up. And then there's less mess in here. And life is better with less messes. I've always said that. I say that a lot. Life is better with less messes. I put that on bumper stickers, and life is better with less mess. Most people don't believe me until they
it's
get there.
it's a
And with
true.
less messes, they like their life better.
And it's interesting because I realized too, and you've had trauma. So let's say I'm looking through a dirty lens with trauma, or unfiltered, a lens that's not accurate either. And my mind's looking through hypervigilance. And I was just reading how the brain actually processes, and that when you've had trauma, it either is overstimulated, hypervigilance, or understimulated to certain things. And then you do biasing, right? Obviously, looking for confirmation bias for that supports your own beliefs. That's what you see. So right now, I'm in the midst of unwiring from the old patterns that life is not safe. That life is danger. That's really was that's the program was running. And now unplugging, moving the dial to life is, as Michael said, love flowing through a cell. So I get to be in that moment and just say, okay, and it's almost, I don't want to say force myself, but I have to be vigilant to start to wire that lens. That's what I'm just noticing, that I really, it's now there, I can see, and my tendency is to go to being on guard and all those things, that life isn't safe. And now it's taking a new path, and hence you're here, and hence Michael's here, and all the beautiful souls that are supporting as well. So yeah, it's an interesting journey now to and that perceptual, that's a construct that I built for whatever, and the soul's journey, all that's even deeper layer, but it's just, yeah, it's an opportunity. I just see it's a grand opportunity to choose love. I just wanted to share that because I really see how perception is constructed in every moment, and most of it's coming from the past.
So it's fairly close to the time when you discovered this work. Is that safe to say?
Can you say that again?
Do you know exactly how you came in contact with this work?
Mm-hmm.
How did you come in contact with this work?
Well, I've been doing my work, and so the seeds I was planting, this happens to be the fruits of what I planted. And so I've been the years doing my work.
Right,
And
but
then
how did you find Michael's work and this show, and or
I
what did you find first?
I found the Course in Miracles. I lead a Course in Miracles group, and I posed a question in my mind, and then Michael's happened to come across one of the feeds. I just posed a question in my mind, and then there it was, his video. And then when I
Do
saw,
you remember what was the topic of that video
oh,
that
I don't,
introduced you to this work?
what was the topic of it? I know I don't remember. I think it might have been around forgiveness. That might have been. I'm not even sure, to be honest. I don't
Okay.
know.
Some of the big ones that bring people in are his definition for forgiveness from the ancient Aramaic and his take on what the Course in Miracles says in the lesson, What is the World?
Yeah, and I can't, to be honest with you, I don't remember exactly, but I can tell you when I saw it, I knew I had to meet him. And then I got in contact with Jeannie, and then she said, "Well, they're not doing intensives right now," but I said, "Keep me in mind if you do." And so it must have been November maybe when the dialogue happened and I saw it, and then they told me they were doing an intensive, and so I went. Yeah, so it'd probably
Okay.
be November that came across, and then obviously with his work, I got to see your work and who you are. So. And so, yeah, so for me, it's really that I really see the fruits of my efforts. And, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. So that's what I'm seeing. So all of the,
Or or when the
yeah,
student is ready, the teacher disappears.
yeah, yeah. So all that exactly what's happening. So my lens of perception through fear. Fear might have been the teacher, but it's not needed anymore. So yeah, it's been very enlightening and expansive and all those things. So your topic today on perception is just perfect on time. So thank you.
Yeah, it's a mind-boggling thing for me. I just when I understand how well, it's like I almost just fell into the phrase that comes from lesson 3 in the Way of Mastery, where it says, if you understood what happened inside your physical mind-body energy system every time you judge, you would never judge again. If we understood, if we start teaching ourselves, our children, more accurately about perception and the relative truth of this, that, or the other thing that we experience, it would be off the charts for initiating change in our lives for the better. It's just like anything. If you understand how the system works, you can work with the system better. If you don't understand how it works, you're bumbling around in the dark, bumping into things, doing
Mhm.
a lot of stuff you don't need to do that's expensive and time consuming, that isn't getting any good results, and doing a whole bunch of stuff that is expensive and time consuming, getting bad results, and you just keep bouncing around changing it. When you understand, wait a minute, there's a process in here that works a certain way, and I can tap into that process and use it for my own advantage anytime I choose, if I understand how the system works. But it is not what we've been taught. The system is not that I simply open my eyes or open my ears and I hear and see everything that's there. That's not how this system works.
Yeah, it's really landing. And then it talked about if I know that I am created in the image of God and that God's running the show and I'm a conduit of that, that's a whole different that that I will never know it all. And I think it was somewhere they talked about we will never know. I won't. This mind will never ever ever know. So, but knowing that I was created in the image of God, that's a beautiful place to rest if God's love. And then just be in the experience of it, the direct experience of life. No.
Well, and then there's that idea of we've been conditioned into an addiction we don't know we have, right? And the addiction is to the familiar, or the addiction is to be right. And I'm going to call it an addiction because as Michael Ryce talks about addiction, he says an addiction is the compulsive use. The word compulsive needs to be in there, right? The compulsive use of any drug, any substance, any behavior, any person to avoid feeling or having to deal with an internal pain, fear, or sadness, or to avoid having to be in touch with and follow my highest guidance? Well, using that definition for addiction, it could be easily said that most of us have been conditioned, if not all of us, have been conditioned into the addiction to being right. And we will argue about how we're right, and we will take our need to be seen as being right to the grave with us, right down into the slime pit. And it is an open invitation from the great spiritual teachings that go back across cultures and thousands of years to say, you know what? Learn to understand, learn to live in the question. Try to understand how little you actually know. Open yourself to the fact that there are worlds upon worlds for you to yet discover, and go into each moment with that as an active observation and watch how your life changes. Cancel your need to be right, cancel your need to be safe, cancel your need for X, Y, or Z thing, as long as there's an alarm going off in your system of pain or fear or sadness or tension or hurt or shame or guilt or whatever.
Great stuff. Thank you.
So it's just, you're welcome and deserving. There's all kinds of stuff up. There's all kinds of opportunities for discussion. We had somebody who was getting stepped through a worksheet process yesterday in the group. I mean, in the internet show in the last half of the show. We have the capacity to field your questions about that process and or any situation you might be facing that you think might benefit from a worksheet process. I've had some thoughts about, picking up, where do we go next? Do we read another book? Do we engage another pattern of activity? Do we start a 5 worksheets a day for 40 days challenge? Do we, what direction do we take the show in this next period of time now that we have finished rereading the book A Walk in the Physical by Christian Sundberg? And so I'm open to suggestions for that. One thought I had was potentially bringing up the book Positive Intelligence by Shirzad Shamin and reading that with commentary. It's an option. We have some options, and as a, I'll have to use the word community. I like to throw it open and get input from people, and the other contender for that slot is to reread The Way of Mastery, which, it's one of those, it's one of those pieces of work that just keeps on giving.
I would definitely be open to that one.
You would be open to rereading The Way of Mastery?
I would love if you reread The Way of Mastery.
And if we can't get to it, please remember that the archives of the shows we did where that's exactly what we did, and we spent our time, twice now on this show, we've read through it. The first year's worth are available as recordings. The second year I didn't keep up with all of that work because the feedback I was getting is that it's wasted effort, that if people were listening back, they were listening back to the first year.
Okay, I didn't realize that you had already done that, so I will definitely look back. Thank you.
Yeah, we've done it twice, and that's part of what faith on the support group was trying to mention to you that there's a hot link that she's put in emails and sent to people
Got it.
that goes to the web page where it's me reading The Way of Mastery with commentary.
I thought it was somebody else. I didn't realize it was you. I misunderstood then. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, I'll look for it.
Yeah, it's the if I remember it correctly, I think we did the Course in Miracles lessons 1 year, and then the next year I think we read The Way of Mastery with commentary, and then the next year I think we did a couple littler books like Diederik Wolzak's Choose Again, 6 Steps to Happiness, um, and others. I mean, the list of books is also, it's not exhaustive, but there is a list of books that we've discussed and shared on the Mindshifters radio program, and that's available on a page on the mindshiftersacademy.org website.
Yeah, let me look for those. Thanks.
And then I had somebody else request that I put up a list of the different tools and techniques that I rattle off when I say, use whatever tool works for you, right? Use Michael Ryce's Reality Management Worksheet or Diederik Wolzak's 6-Step Worksheet or Byron Katie's 4 questions and turnaround that she calls the work, or the Sedona release method, or Ho'oponopono, or any tool that you find useful, keep using it. Just keep using it. And now I've had 3 different people request that I make that list with the hot links to where can I go to learn more about either Ho'oponopono or Byron Katie's work or whatever. So I will see what I can do to make that happen in the not too distant future, right there on the mindshiftersacademy.org website, which, began about 6 or 7 years ago, specifically with the intention of increasing exposure to Dr. Michael Ryce's website and his work and all the work Jeannie does to keep that website up and running. Because at the time, the best information we had was that the more different websites or web pages that point to a website, the better the search results. So we'll see what we see. And we could do a book reading of Shirzad Shamin's work or something else. I just had another person that talked to me about how they could see that what I was saying about the Shirzad Shamin book was it was their experience too, that it's just very similar to the work that we do in this show, that I've talked about, that I do in my support groups and I do in my individual therapy sessions. So how can we support you? What are your thoughts? We've got about 20, 25 minutes left in this hour. In the support group last night, I don't know what happened, but something kind of blew up, and I was finding myself pulling up an Anthony DeMello book like Awareness and Taking Flight, which is a book about metaphor stories for teaching. And Anthony DeMello tells some lovely stories and teaches through his stories. And one that keeps coming up is the story of the archbishop for some denomination, some Christian denomination that was going out and spreading the word and had a great big, tall ship with massive sails, and they went around the world and they stumbled across this island. And so they got out their little rowboats and rowed over the island, and they met some people that had been basically stranded there for generations. And there were just, I forget how many, three, four young, not young, three or four old men that were there, and they were very devout. They meditated and prayed all the time, but they didn't know anything about the archbishop and the changes that had happened in the church and this, that, and the other. So the archbishop goes, okay, well, I can teach you, and this is fine. So he spends a few days with them, and then it's time to leave. And they go out in the rowboat, they get in the big ship, and they're heading out, and all of a sudden, there's a cry that comes up from the ship, and people looking back at the little island, and everybody goes to the rail and looks over, and here, in defiance of everything they know to be possible and true, here are these three men running across the water after the big ship, catching up to the big ship, and yelling, Archbishop, Archbishop, don't go, don't go. You've got to teach us. We forgot the words you were trying to teach us of this prayer. And the Archbishop comes to the edge of the massive ship and sees the miracle of these men literally running across the water. And he's humbled, and of course, thank goodness he had this presence of mind to say, don't worry about the words I told you, just keep doing what you're already doing. What you're doing seems to be working just fine. If you can run across the water, go ahead and chase whatever you want. If you're not at that level yet, you might want to slow down, and you might want to start canceling goals, and you might want to give up whatever robotic or automatic process you're caught in, because it's not allowing you full access to the glories of life. Now, I say that without the least hint that I think I have full access to the glories of life in this or any other moment. But I also say it with acknowledgement that the more I practice these kinds of tools, the better my life gets. So while some of us observe and teach that I'll never be done, because as the Way of Mastery says, how can I ever be done learning about myself if I'm part of the one infinite, ever expanding mind? And if I'm part of creation itself, and creation is always expanding, then I can't ever be done knowing myself, or what I need to know, or what I should know, etc. So if you want a good read, you can read Awareness by Anthony DeMello. And what I found out years after I first read this book was that the book Awareness is literally just a compilation of things, like the transcript of things that he has said in different seminars or workshops that he's run over the years, that he had run over the years. I'm what I found out was when I got the Audible version of this book, it's not quite verbatim, but it's the actual recording. And much of it is just, they had microphones in the rooms when he was doing his workshops or seminars, and there it is. So if nobody raised a hand, I'm just going to read a little bit here from Whetting People's Appetite for Awareness, because I opened the book to this page and I've got it dog-eared here. Good religion, hyphen, the antithesis of unawareness. And Anthony writes, somebody came up to me once during a conference and asked, quote, what about Our Lady of Fatima, close quotes. What do you think of her? He writes, when I'm asked questions like that, I'm reminded of the story of the time they were taking the statue of Our Lady of Fatima on an airplane to a pilgrimage for worship. And as they were flying over the south of France, the plane began to wobble and shake, and it looked like it was going to come apart. And the miraculous statue cried out, Our Lady of Fatima, Lords, the statue cried out instead of, now this is a statue of Our Lady of Fatima. And then they're on the plane, the statue is on the plane, and the plane starts shaking like it's going to fall apart. And the statue cries out, Our Lady of Lords, pray for us. And instantly all was well. Wasn't it wonderful? It was one Our Lady helping another Our Lady. He writes, there was also a group of 1,000 people who went on a pilgrimage to Mexico City to venerate the shrine of Our Lady of Guadalupe, and sat down before the statue in protest because the bishop of the diocese had declared, quote, Our Lady of Lourdes, close quotes, was the patroness of the diocese. They were sure that Our Lady of Guadalupe felt this very much, so they were doing the protest in reparation for the offense. And then he writes, that's the whole trouble with religion, if you don't watch out. When I speak to Hindus, I tell them, your priests are not going to be happy to hear this. Notice how prudent I am this morning. He writes, but God will be much happier, according to Jesus Christ, if you were transformed than if you worshiped. He would be much more pleased by your loving than by your adoration of him. When I walk to Muslims or talk to Muslims, I say, your Ayatollah and your mullahs are not going to be happy to hear this, but God is going to be much more pleased by your being transformed into a loving person than by your marching around saying, Lord, Lord. It's definitely more important that you be waking up. That's spirituality. That's everything. If you have that, you have God. And then you worship in spirit and in truth. When you become love, you are transformed by love, transformed into love. The danger of what religion can do is very nicely brought out in a story told by Cardinal Martini, the Archbishop of Milan. The story has to do with an Italian couple that's getting married. They have an arrangement with the parish priest to have a little reception in the parish courtyard outside the church. But it rained, and they couldn't have the reception. So they said to the priest, would it be all right? Can we just have a little celebration in the church? Now, the father wasn't one bit happy about having a reception in the church, but they said, well, we will just eat a little cake, sing a little song, drink a little wine, and then go home. So the father was persuaded. However, being good, life-loving Italians, they drank a little wine, they sang a little song, then drank a little more wine, and sang some more songs. And within a half an hour, there was a great celebration going in the church, and everybody was having a great time, lots of fun and frolic. But the father was all tense. He was pacing up and down in the sacristy, all upset about the noise that they were making. The assistant pastor comes in and says, "I see you're quite tense." The father says, "Of course I am tense. Listen to all that noise they're making in the house of God, for heaven's sake." "Well, father, they really had no place to go." "I know that," says the father, "but do they have to make all that racket?" Well, the assistant priest says, "Well, you mustn't forget, father, that Jesus himself once was present at a wedding." Father says, "I know that Jesus was present at a wedding banquet. You don't have to tell me that Jesus Christ was present at a wedding banquet, but at that wedding, they didn't have the Blessed Sacrament there." The absurdity, the absurdity of the way we live our lives can sometimes be brought full focus, clear focus in a story like that. You know, he says there are times when the Blessed Sacrament becomes more important than Jesus Christ. In other words, the thoughts that men have created, men and women have created about their God and the people they worship is far more important than the actuality. And this is why great spiritual teachers like Krishnamurti have to tell us over and over again, the word is not the thing. Yeah, there's a power in words, and Michael Ryce likes to say the power of life and death is in your words. Yes, that's absolutely true. And yet it's not that the power of your words is as immediate and effective as a knife stabbing through a board. It might be like a little splinter coming off the board. And you might need to repeat those words over and over and over again, and then you have some kind of a creative effect that you either approve of and like, or you feel like, gee, I got to correct this. So that in scale, at these levels of teaching, people like Krishnamurti keep reminding us that the same kind of thing that Dr. Michael Ryce talks about when he says a word is just a symbol of a symbol. Right? So there's a hunk of energy out in the world and you come into contact with it with your senses. So there's something out there that light and or sound is bouncing off of and it's hitting your senses. Your mind creates an image of that. This is what we've been talking about. I don't experience anything directly. My senses uh, are getting stimulated and my brain is making its best guess about what's out there. So the word is not the thing because the picture in my head is a symbol of what's actually happening out in the world around me. And then I create a word to go with that picture. And now I've got a symbol of a symbol. So now I can communicate to people with a word about the image that my head has created, which, by the way, only exists inside my head. Until Krishnamurti was one of the great spiritual teachers that kept coming to us and saying, listen, the word is not the thing. You are not your thoughts about yourself. The thought is not the thing. Your thoughts can't solve your mental emotional problems because your thoughts and the fundamental flaw in that process keep creating your suffering. And therefore they can't be the solution to your suffering. So sometimes, every once in a while, I stop and I wonder, have I been rambling? Did I make sense? Where did I go?
Exactly perfect, just so you know.
Okay. It comes to me to say I will not be here for an internet show tomorrow, Friday, or Monday. I'm going to be going to a family mini reunion, and so there will not be a support group tomorrow night, but we will pick those up again. The internet show, this hour of the internet show will pick up again on Tuesday.
I got a
And
question.
yes, go ahead.
And so how do you prepare for when you have to go and do family events, or you said, and that's it. What didn't some monks say? If you want to see how enlightened you are, go spend some time with family.
Right, right.
So what do you do
Stuart
to?
Wilde, Stuart
Yeah.
Wilde,
Okay.
I quote him because he said, when you start being known as a spiritual teacher, you write a book or two, and then everybody wants to come to you and tell you all about their guru and how enlightened their guru is. And he said, I got so tired of people trying to tell me that their guru was enlightened that I would say to them, let's go spend a week at, at your guru's house with his family of origin. At the end of that week, we'll know who's really enlightened.
Yeah, that's exactly true. So how do you prepare? Because you're going to go spend 3 days with your.
Well, and especially because this is the 1 year anniversary of a family outing that was very unsatisfying, that was very loaded with irritation and upset from a variety of different people, so much so that there were murmurings around, let's not do this again.
Mm,
And the dynamics are all there, right? So like my this is the just past the 3 year anniversary of my mom leaving the body, and she made it to 94, and she was the matriarch of the family and an absolutely wonderful fountain of love as a person. And so most of the family, well, basically, it's safe to say every family gathering for decades had been around either my mom and dad or my mom, because my dad passed away back in 99. And so wherever the kids or grandkids were, we would try to congregate wherever my mother was, and that would be the hub for the family gathering. And now she's not there. And people live in Minnesota, and people live in Indiana, and people live in Illinois. So, where are we gonna where are we gonna meet? So all of that was happening, and this was the second last year was the second time we'd gotten together to try and keep the family together. We decided we'll meet one time around the holidays, alternate Thanksgiving and Christmas, and one time during the warmer weather. We'll go someplace and meet as a family. So this was only the second time, and it blew up in such a way that quite literally people were thinking, I'm not sure I want to do that again.
mm,
So I did all kinds of worksheets. I talked about it on the internet show. I got in touch with all kinds of expectations I had, hopes and fears that I had about will this family survive not having a matriarch or a patriarch there, and will people drift away? Because, there are different personalities, and not everybody uses the tools or even acknowledges the need for tools. And so I got really clear about aspects of what I had done to create my upset, and
mm,
how when I got upset right there in the on the first day when we get to the verbo, my response to some really selfish, really rude, really abrupt comments from another family member was to just shut down and just withdraw and say, look, I'm not here to be a therapist. I'm not going to try to fix this for people. I'm just going to, I'm going to disappear. And I did. I basically just went through the motions
mm,
and was churning, waiting for the opportunity to get some free time to do my tapping and my worksheets and dismantle, because I knew it was all an inside job. I just didn't have in that moment how much I had invested in my hopes that this would be a cohesive family unit that just gets stronger with every time we're together. I didn't realize how much I'd invested hopes and fears in that set of goals, and it just caught me off guard.
mm.
And so I did, weeks worth of worksheets and EFT tapping and journaling and people doing NET with me, and I got to a much better place around it, and okay either way. I'm okay if we get together, I'm okay if we don't. So that's what, that's this is a loaded, charged up thing. However, because I've done all kinds of prep work around it, I'm in a much better place than I was even for our holiday gathering this past year, which went far better. But it only went better because we'd had these open, direct conversations with people about how not so well it went last summer.
Do you have any expectations on this one?
I'm having many fewer expectations, just like what I did with the trip out west. I'm going to go. The weather will be what it is. The people will be what they are. Some people will have fun. Some people won't. I'll stay in my lane. I'll do my work around whatever comes up. And that's my mindset going into this.
Awesome. And well, there were, they say wherever two or more are gathered. Well, I get to hold an intention for for you also. It's the most amazing trip. You come back to share all the glory that you had and all the insights, and it went beyond into an unknown that you've never experienced in your family system. That's what I hold the intention for. And however that gets revealed, let it be so.
All right. From your mouth to God's ears, as my grandmother would say. So, Sally.
Well, I'll join her in that. And thank you for the question, Susan, because I was curious myself, and I love the answer. I'm around family a lot, and I also have the 93-year-old mom who is fading, and I have often wondered in advance, will the family lean in to each other, or everybody go their own way? And it's always like those extreme black and white. And I also have, the only reason I piped in right now is because I recognized when you said that you had a high hope that the family would hang together. And when things showed up the way they showed up, there was this huge disappointment I use that word for you, which is maybe true, maybe not. But then you withdrew, which would be my way of running also. And so that was really helpful to me to hear you say you went through a week of EFT tapping worksheets, reaching out to others that can help you process and put their eyes on the puzzle and ears and their hearts. It's important to know after 68 years that now I have resources. And so many decades of my life, I was just winging it. I was just doing the best I could with what I had. And like Susan has shared, feeling like life could be borderline dangerous. And so I needed to keep it together, in whatever way I had. And just knowing I don't have to play that game anymore. And I can do worksheets, and I can reach out, and I can join you guys. So thank you for the question, and thank you for the answer.
Well, you're very welcome. And just to be clear, it was far more than just a week of worksheets and exercises and journaling and.
Thank you.
So, thank you. Thank you for the comments and questions. I realize we've taken ourselves right to the wire of our first hour. So, again, I will not be here for Thursday, Friday, or Monday, but we will have a support group next Tuesday and a group or internet show Tuesday. I'll remind us all that we come from love. We're made of the stuff we call love. We actually are love, and everything else is false.